In the months following September 2025, discussions surrounding the passing of Menglong continued to surface across Chinese social media platforms. While official accounts and mainstream reporting remained focused on remembrance and his artistic legacy, a parallel conversation began to grow online. This second narrative was not built on confirmed facts, but on fragmented posts, emotional reactions, and the natural tendency of internet communities to search for deeper meaning in moments of public shock. At first, the conversation was quiet. Fans shared tributes, favorite scenes from his dramas, and emotional messages about his influence. But as days turned into weeks, online discussions began to diversify. Some users revisited timelines of his final appearances, others analyzed interviews, and a few began speculating about inconsistencies in early online reports. In this environment of uncertainty, rumors began to evolve and take on lives of their own. One of the most persistent patterns in digital culture is how ambiguity invites interpretation. When information is limited, the internet often fills the gaps with theories, emotional assumptions, and dramatic narratives. In Menglong's case, this manifested in various forms of speculation that spread rapidly across comment sections and fan forums. Short video platforms amplified this effect. Edited clips of his performances were reposted with emotional music and cryptic captions. Some creators framed their content as hidden meanings or unseen details, encouraging viewers to interpret ordinary moments as clues. While most of this content was driven by admiration rather than malice, it contributed to a growing atmosphere of mystery around his passing. As engagement increased, so did the intensity of discussion. Certain posts began using sensational language, while others attempted to connect unrelated events into structured narratives. Screenshots circulated widely, often removed from context. In many cases, users were reacting to interpretations of interpretations, creating layers of distortion that made it difficult to separate fact from speculation. Despite this, a large portion of the online community continued to focus on remembrance. Fans organized digital memorial spaces, shared compilations of his most iconic scenes, and translated interviews for international audiences. These communities emphasized respect and emotional healing, reminding others that speculation should not overshadow his artistic legacy. Within this dual environment of tribute and rumor, Menglong's image became symbolic. To some, he represented nostalgia for a beloved era of Chinese dramas. To others, he became the center of emotional projection, where uncertainty amplified feelings of loss and curiosity. The internet, in this sense, did not just reflect reality, but reshaped it through collective emotion. As discussions expanded, entertainment observers noted how quickly narratives can evolve in the digital age. A single unverified claim can be reposted thousands of times, gradually transforming into a perceived, alternate story. This does not necessarily mean people believe everything they see, but rather that engagement often prioritizes emotional intensity over verification. In Menglong's case, this process created a layered conversation. At the surface level were tributes and condolences. Beneath that were analytical discussions about his career and final works. And deeper still were speculative threads that attempted to construct meaning from incomplete information. These layers coexisted, often overlapping in confusing ways. One of the most striking aspects of this phenomenon was the emotional consistency across all layers. Whether users were sharing memories or debating online claims, the underlying sentiment was admiration. Even when conversations became speculative, they were still rooted in the desire to understand and connect with someone who had impacted their lives through screen performances. Industry analysts have often pointed out that celebrity culture in the digital era blurs the boundary between public and private narratives. Audiences no longer experience events passively. They participate in shaping the discourse. In moments of uncertainty, this participation can intensify, leading to widespread reinterpretation of events as users collectively attempt to fill informational gaps. Menglong's career made him especially susceptible to this type of engagement. Known for his emotionally expressive acting style and quiet public demeanor, he had cultivated an image that felt both accessible and enigmatic. This combination often leads audiences to project meaning onto subtle details, especially in moments of emotional significance. As months passed, the intensity of discussion gradually shifted. While occasional waves of speculation still appeared, they were increasingly balanced by reflective posts celebrating his legacy. Fans revisited his dramas not as clues to be analyzed, but as works to be appreciated. This shift marked a transition from uncertainty-driven engagement to memory-driven remembrance. In many ways, the entire conversation became a case study in how modern internet culture processes loss. It demonstrated how quickly information ecosystems can fragment, how emotional narratives can spread faster than verified updates, and how public figures become symbolic anchors for collective emotion. What remained consistent throughout was the respect shown by the majority of fans. Even when discussions diverged into speculation, there was an underlying recognition of Menglong's contribution to entertainment and the emotional connection he built with audiences over the years. Ultimately, the story surrounding his passing is not defined by rumors or alternate theories, but by the impact he left behind. His performances continue to circulate, his roles continue to be rediscovered, and his presence remains embedded in the cultural memory of viewers. And in that sense, the most powerful narrative is not the speculation that surrounded him online, but the enduring legacy of an actor whose work continues to speak long after his final appearance on screen. As the online conversation continued to evolve, one of the most interesting shifts was not in the rumors themselves, but in how people began reacting to them. What started as scattered speculation slowly transformed into a broader discussion about how information spreads in moments of emotional intensity. In the case of Menglong, fans and observers alike began questioning not just the content of what they were seeing online, but the speed at which it was being shared. Many users started pointing out how quickly unverified posts could gain traction. A single short clip or screenshot, once uploaded, could be reposted thousands of times within hours, often stripped of context. As these fragments circulated, they became part of a larger narrative that felt coherent on the surface, even when the original sources were unclear or incomplete. This created a digital environment where perception often moved faster than verification. At the same time, fan communities became more organized in their response. Dedicated groups began actively archiving verified information about Menglong's career, focusing on his filmography, interviews, and public appearances. These spaces emphasize clarity and respect, encouraging members to separate emotional reaction from factual reporting. For many fans, this became a way to regain a sense of stability amid the overwhelming volume of online content. Interestingly, the more structured these communities became, the more distinct the contrast grew between remembrance and speculation. On one side were fans sharing carefully curated tributes, highlighting his most iconic performances and personal qualities. On the other side were fast-moving discussion threads where users debated interpretations of past events and attempted to connect fragmented details into broader narratives. The two conversations often existed simultaneously, but rarely intersected in a meaningful way. Entertainment analysts observing this pattern noted that Menglong's case reflected a broader trend in digital culture. In moments involving public figures, especially those deeply admired by audiences, emotional engagement often drives information sharing more than verified accuracy. This does not necessarily stem from misinformation alone, but from the human tendency to seek meaning in moments of uncertainty. As time passed, the tone of the conversation gradually softened in many spaces. While occasional spikes of speculation still appeared, they were increasingly met with reminders from other users to focus on his artistic contributions instead. Clips from his dramas began circulating again in a more nostalgic context, often accompanied by messages emphasizing appreciation rather than analysis. In particular, younger audiences discovering Menglong for the first time through streaming platforms contributed to a renewed wave of interest in his work. For them, he was not just a subject of online discussion, but a performer whose roles carried emotional depth and sincerity. This helped shift part of the digital narrative back toward his artistic legacy, reinforcing the idea that his most lasting impact lies in his performances rather than the noise surrounding online discourse. In the end, The continued attention surrounding Menglong highlights how modern audiences engage with public figures in the digital era. His presence online is no longer limited to his active career, but lives on through shared memories, archived performances, and ongoing discussions about his work. And as the internet continues to move forward, his legacy remains anchored not in speculation, but in the emotional connection he built with millions of viewers who continue to revisit his stories long after the screen fades to black.